Hey everybody, Eric with MountModernLife.com. I hope you guys are doing great today. And I'm sure you're already aware that reclaimed wood is awesome. It's a great way to add character into your space. And once in a while you can use some new wood in order to replicate the look, but it's darn near impossible to replicate the history, story, and feeling you get from a good piece of reclaimed wood. And that's why over the years, Katie and I have done a ton of different projects using it, both in our house before we hit the road in the RV and in our RV since we've been on the road. But with that said, that awesome piece of wood that you found could end up being a Trojan horse of disaster. So that's why today we're going to share a couple different tips on how to go about cleaning reclaimed wood. And there's a couple different reasons you might want to do that. Number one is you may want to get rid of all the dirt and grime that's built up on the wood. And then number two is you want to make sure that all the pests or bugs that are living inside it are dead and that they don't come back in the future. So we have an awesome project we've been working on, and we're going to show you how we went about cleaning that wood specifically. But before we did that, we wanted to share with you a couple different options that you may want to consider. One of the easiest ways to feel confident in bringing your reclaimed wood into your home or RV is by having it kiln dried. Now, some places where you go and actually purchase your reclaimed wood, they'll have a kiln on location, and they might have already actually dried the wood that you picked up. Now, what a kiln is basically an oven for wood, and they take the wood and put it inside, generally heating it to ranges of about 140 degrees, though that temperature does vary depending on the wood thickness, humidity in the air, and moisture in the wood. But the point of the kiln essentially is to remove the moisture that's inside there, but since they're heating it so high, it actually ends up sanitizing the wood and killing off any bugs or pests that may be living inside. So while it won't clean the wood to the look that you're necessarily going for, it will have it sanitized and ready to be brought inside. So if you find yourself picking up a piece of reclaimed wood that has been kiln dried and it doesn't quite look the way you want it to, or it doesn't have the patina that you're going for, you may have a little bit more work to do, and we'll dive into some of those options here in a minute. So if your wood hasn't been kiln dried and you're looking for it to be, you can call around to, say, your local sawmills or lumber yards or places along those lines, because they may have a kiln on site. Now, the problem with that is that it can get kind of expensive, and if you have a small batch, sometimes they won't even process it, and that's primarily because within the kiln, when they put the wood in, sometimes that wood needs to be in there for quite a long time, say a week or months in specific instances, and they only like to do it in the large batches so they can get more done out of it. Now, this is also the reason that if you go to, say, a lumber yard or a salvage yard and you find reclaimed wood, and you may find some that's quite a bit more expensive than others, that's primarily because they probably already kiln dried that wood, and that price is reflected of that. So just something to keep in mind. Another professional service to consider is getting the wood milled down. Now, there's a couple different reasons that you might want to take this approach. Number one is that if you're not using both or all four sides of the wood, by milling it down, you're going to eliminate a lot of the cleaning that you would have to do by having now to only do one side versus two or four. Now, another reason you may want to do this is to conserve on weight. All of the RV or all of our reclaimed wood projects that we've used in the RV have been milled down, and that's primarily to make the wood lighter. So anyway, if you want to lower the amount of cleaning you have to do or the weight of your wood, getting it milled down before you move on would be a great idea. Now, that doesn't help with bugs or anything like that, but we'll get into more about handling that here in a minute. But what's really cool and interesting tidbit is that when you go to, say, a Home Depot or a Lowe's or any wood shop and you buy a 2x4 and you get home and realize that that 2x4 is actually 1.5 by 3.5 inches, well, the reason that is because the board is cut at 2x4 and then put into a kiln. And once it's in the kiln and it removes that moisture, the wood actually shrinks, and then that's the reason that it's not the direct size of the piece of wood that you're buying. So anyway, we thought that was really cool, but let's go ahead and move on to some different options. Now that we have the professional options out of the way, let's go ahead and touch on some options you can do from home in order to get that reclaimed wood ready to go into your house or RV. And the number one option for cleaning is pressure washing. Now, this isn't going to help with your bug situation, but it will get it clean and get all that dirt and grime off of your wood. Now, it is really important that if you are going to be pressure washing reclaimed wood, that you stay probably about a foot away with your pressure washer and keep it on its lowest setting. And that's primarily because you don't want to, A, destroy the wood, and 2, if you're trying to keep the patina of it, you don't want to end up pressure washing that off as well. Now, the thing is sometimes people can say, hey, I don't have a pressure washer. Well, that's okay, especially if you're doing a larger project. You can go to Home Depot, and pressure washers are relatively inexpensive to rent. And if you have a larger project, it's going to save you a ton of time. Now, let's say that you have a smaller project you're trying to tackle, so you don't think you need a pressure washer. Let's go ahead and dive into another option that may help you out. So one of the most cost-effective ways to go ahead and get your reclaimed wood all cleaned up is using nothing but a hose, a nozzle, a bristle brush, and a container filled with soapy water. And that's exactly what we did for our reclaimed wood project that we're working on. I actually, to be honest, couldn't find my nozzle when we started. Of course, I did find it 5 minutes after we finished. But in the meantime, what I had to do is use my thumb and create a poor man's pressure washer. I went ahead and sprayed down the wood on all sides. And then after that, I grabbed my bristle brush with the soapy water and went ahead to scrubbing. And I scrubbed all around the wood, let it set for a couple minutes, and then came back with my poor man's pressure wash and rinsed the wood all down. And this is a cost-effective, maybe labor-intensive way of going ahead and getting the reclaimed wood all cleaned up. Now, one thing that I want to note here, and this goes for the pressure washing as well as this version of washing, and that's that if you're going to be taking this approach, you're probably going to want to look at the weather, especially if your wood's going to be outside. And that's because for this, we kind of recommend that it has at least a couple days to air dry after you get done washing it. So you want to make sure that you don't have rain immediately in the forecast. So let's pretend for a minute that you have some reclaimed wood that's already kiln dried, or you're just not too concerned about really deep cleaning it like the pressure washer and the bristle brush would do. You can try a couple different options. One is using a steamer, and you go over the wood with the steam. It does a great job at disinfecting and even raising up a little of the dirt and grime that may be stuck on there, but it's not as labor intensive or as deep of a cleaning. You could also go ahead and use, say, a wire brush and scrub along, and then that's going to get rid of a lot of the loose lying dirt and things like that. And then even if you don't want to go that route, if you just want to give it a hand sanding to kind of clean it up and get it freshened up so that you can put it where you want it, those are options that you could also take as well. But anyway, now that we've talked about a couple different ways to clean up the wood, let's go ahead and talk about a couple different options for making sure there's no bugs in there and you prevent them from coming back. Now that our wood's all cleaned up, it's time to move on to making sure we don't have bugs and that we don't get them in the future. And one of the most popular commercial options out there that we found was called Boric Air, and it works by being either sprayed on or painted on. And what it does is it sinks into the wood and kills any bugs or pests that are in there, and then also prevents them from ever coming back in the future. Now, we did run across another option called Timbor quite a bit, but the problem with that is that it seemed that the Timbor actually prevented bugs or pests from coming into the wood, but didn't do anything about bugs and pests if they were already in the wood. But anyway, let's move on to some of the other options. So there's a couple other options we wanted to mention that actually don't require any application, and that's using your oven or your freezer. Now, as far as the freezer goes, we've never actually used this option, and no, there are some discrepancies because a lot of bugs can live in pretty cold temperatures, so try that one at your own risk. As far as the oven goes, we've actually used this one quite a few times because we make Christmas ornaments out of wood slices. And what we'll do is we'll set the oven to the lowest possible temperature, and then we put them on a pan, making sure that none of the wood slices are touching or touching anything around them. And then we just keep a close eye on it as it's in there. And essentially what it's doing is acting like a miniature kiln. So if your project's small enough, this might be an option you want to take. So one of the easiest and most effective ways we found to actually get rid of bugs and make sure they stay away is using a borax and warm water solution. So this is actually the same approach we took for our reclaimed wood project that we're working on right now. And what we did is added borax and then added a small sample size of warm water, making sure to let the borax completely dilute into the water. Then we added it into a bigger container of water, mixed it up even more, put it into a spray bottle, and then you spray down your wood project. Now, here's the thing. Just like before with the washing and pressure washing of the wood, you're going to want to make sure that the forecast is working in your favor, especially if you're doing this project outside. Because after you add your borax solution, you're going to want to make sure that you have a couple days for the sunlight to really dry out the wood. So I really hope this information has been helpful for you guys, especially if you're looking to clean up or get bugs out of some of your reclaimed wood before you use it in your home or RV. And to be honest with you, we just know that there's a lot of different options out there. So we wanted to share some of them so that you could find the best path moving forward for yourself. Now, at the same time, if you found success cleaning or getting rid of bugs in your own reclaimed wood and it's a different approach than what we mentioned here, we'd love it if you shared it with us. But anyway, thank you guys so much for swinging by today. Don't forget to check back next week. We're actually going to be sharing a video where we put up that reclaimed wood project that we were talking about. So we'd love for you guys to see the end of it. But anyway, don't forget to subscribe and we'll see you again soon.